You all know Doom. How could you not know Doom? The game series so testosterone-fueled and in your face that you have to scream its name wherever possible. The brainchild of a bunch of nerds fucking around in their garage, they had previously pioneered the first-person shooter genre with the release of Wolfenstein 3D. But anyone around at the time will tell you that Doom perfected and defined the art of first-person shooters, and set the standards for the coming decade. Now, I'm not one of those people who was around at the time, and I'm far from qualified in telling you why the original two Dooms are fondly remembered as some of the greatest games of all time, but I will tell you that playing them 30 years later, they're still an absolute joy to play. Finely crafted, powerful weapons, unique challenging stages, and of course the whole mowing down demons from literal hell on a Martian moon with a fucking chainsaw thing. There's not much to dislike about the Doom series. But what about Doom 3? Yep, Doom 3. Widely regarded as the black sheep of the franchise, especially in the wake of Doom 2016 and Eternal. I remember hearing from somewhere I can't readily cite that Doom 3 is more or less what John Carmack had initially envisioned for the first Doom game. If that's true, then it's very unfortunate because as an overall experience, Doom 3 is challenged. It's not a bad game by any stretch of the imagination, but of all the other groundbreaking first-person shooters hitting the scene around 2004, Doom 3 is often regarded as the autistic stepchild of the family, and I'll explain why in just a minute, but I have to suspend my disbelief a little at the idea of a massive subterranean base like this being built on Mars of all places, let alone a small shuttle hustling its way from Earth like this, considering how egregiously expensive the flights would be. Like you thought plane tickets were expensive, this stuff's next level. So some big-brained executive at the UAC is clearly using NordVPN, and he's very probably using the link in the description, nordvpn.com/blackjoshi, for a 2-year protection plan with 1 full month extra, no added costs. Yes, you can use NordVPN to get cheaper flight tickets, and it's really very simple, as NordVPN encrypts the internet data that airlines would use, customize their prices based on IP, country of origin, etc. Whip open the app, select the server you wish to connect to, and boom, no pun intended, the sky is the limit with NordVPN. They haven't got a server on Mars just yet, but if those SpaceX missions go well, I'm sure they'll be right around the corner. So why not give it a try? Check out the link in the description, nordvpn.com/blackjoshi, and give it a whirl with 1 month extra with a 30-day money-back guarantee. And as usual, stay safe and stay protected. So this might be heresy to some people, but yes, I'm about to go over the story of a Doom game. Why am I doing this? You're asking the wrong fucking questions, buddy. John Carmack once said that the story of a video game is about as important to the game itself as it is to that of a porno. That is to say, not at all. Now, I can't speak much for the porno, but given the advancement in game design and the endless possibilities games have provided for storytelling over the decades, I disagree. And apparently, so did John Carmack, because holy fuck, this game is full of story exposition. Long story short, you're some dude who's working their first day at a super secret science research facility where you can interact with your co-workers and manipulate the environment in quaint little ways before a teleportation experiment goes wrong and interdimensional beings begin hold on, that's the wrong fucking game. The story beats and plot points are all pretty much ripped word for word from Half-Life, only someone at id must have been watching way too much fucking Event Horizon at the time.
We're leaving.
Which explains some of the set pieces and why corpses keep getting thrown around everywhere like this entire invasion was orchestrated by Gmod admins. In spite of this, Doom 3 seems weirdly proud of its setting and world building even though none of it is even remotely fucking interesting. You find PDAs scattered across the facility that outside of giving you easy access to secured doors and allow you to read some random fucker's emails and listen to his audio diaries where they all habitually give away their fucking passwords.
Dear diary, I took a shit today. It stank. Also, the code to my locker is 6969. I sure hope no demon invasions happen today.
This in turn begins an unfortunate sequence of stop-starting between action set pieces and dicking around through someone's iPad and rifling through their lockers, which I can only elaborate upon by saying it leaves the pacing slightly schizophrenic. I will say though that my favorite log entry has to be the one detailing best practices for satanic rituals and demonic sacrifices, written in such a corporate and sanitized way that it makes me giggle at the thought of Satan, and by extension hell itself, having a fucking bureaucracy. After all, we all all know the worst thing about hell is all the paperwork. But what's this? Ancient Martian ruins? Outlandish alien architecture and technology beyond our understanding? That isn't the same cookie-cutter hallway I've been running through for the past 7 hours? The story almost gets interesting in the last 30 minutes, at which point it's basically already over and is never elaborated upon ever again. Now, in spite of all this, I actually really appreciate the level of effort and care being put into making the facility feel like a place where people worked in and had existential crises within, as it helps out a lot with the immersion factor. But playing Doom 3 again after all these years, it feels like a game that's trying to be two different things at once. It wants to be Doom, but it also wants to be the most diarrhea-inducing horror game on the market, which is of course how you end up with shit like this.
That was weird.
To complement the sketchy writing, the big bad of the game is a man who definitely is not the devil in disguise and definitely could not have been stopped by anyone had the UAC had a pair of functioning fucking eyes. The UAC counselor sits there listening to Dr. Evil over here begin talking to himself about how amazing things are going to happen here soon, and somehow everyone acts surprised when the shit hits the fan, especially considering how his surname is literally the German word for deceiver. In all fairness though, Betruger is a pretty fun villain. He does the cliched evil laughter and occasionally bullies you through telepathy.
Making progress, Marine?
Yeah?
Your journey is futile.
Oh, fuck you, man.
It lends his character a kind of omnipresence, and you can tell the voice actor had a whale of a time doing his lines, which translates very well to the character. What doesn't translate well is the various choices you're given throughout the game.
Hey you! Can you help me? I'm trapped in here. Release the door locks and get me out. What? Hey! Hey! Ah!
Why would it let me do that? What the fuck?
Yeah, they hold no weight or any real consequences to your actions, and neither do they impact the story in any way, to be perfectly fucking honest with you. The biggest choice you have to make in this game is, do I risk rubbing up against that imp with the shotgun, or do I just use the chain gun like a normal geezer would? You can tell from just a glance that pretty much every facet of Doom 3 is geared towards immersing the player and grounding them in the experience, as opposed to the fragrantly over-the-top and arcadey styles of Dooms 1, 2, and beyond. At least when they're not forcing a meth overdose down your throat in the form of the Berserk power-up, which literally appears 2 times in the entire game, mind you, and they're both beyond fucking goofy.
Hey guys, what's happening?
While the visuals have aged, how Doom 3 uses and integrates shadows in not just environmental design, but also in concealing enemy, secret locations, and ambush points keep the player on their toes at all times, especially given how unapologetically relentless these demons are. Animations and modeling are all top-notch for the time as well, balancing the perfect combination of sleek and smooth, fast-paced shooter action and, well, how you would actually be moving and shooting in a situation like this. The flashlight, however, combined with the shotgun, is an item that will never not be a divisive rogue element in Doom's 30-year-long history. Now, given that switching between weapons on the fly is easy enough, for the most part, the constant switching between the flashlight and your weapons isn't that much of a pain in the ass. In fact, I think for the most part it works reasonably well, as given how demons constantly ambush you from beyond the shadows and behind every nook and cranny you can't see, the darkness surrounding you becomes an enemy in and of itself, and the only weapon that can defeat it is the flashlight. It also kind of works against zombies, even if it does sound like someone jerking off. Actually, the sound design as a whole is weird. On one hand, everything is distinct, crisp, and crystal clear. Every enemy you encounter makes a unique noise upon spawning or being aggroed, meaning that even if you can't directly see them, you know exactly what to expect and what tool to use for the job. And while there's no real soundtrack to speak of, the ambient sounds and humming of the base equipment accompanying you wherever you go works wonders in setting up the atmosphere. On the other hand, yes, the melee combat sounds like someone jerking off. At the same time, everything sounds and feels a lot like it should, and if you were to change anything significantly sound-wise, it probably wouldn't sound as good or fit as well with the rest of the game. It's all very wonky, but it's consistently wonky, if you know what I mean. But before I forget, I have to mention the in-game computer UI, and how no other fucking game I can think of has ever done this since Doom 3 did it back in 2004. Sure, it's a little rough around the edges, but these computer screens are really high definition, and interacting with them feels about as natural and fluid as you could possibly make them given the limitations of a first-person control scheme. And they make good use out of them, out of the locker codes and the various puzzles you encounter throughout the game. Mind you, they're not Valve puzzles, and the presence of environmental puzzles in a fucking Doom game do make me question reality slightly, but otherwise, this was the most impressive technical aspect of the game for me, and even now I'm scratching my head wondering how the hell they actually did it and why it's not in more games. I'm gonna get this right out of the way, this game is hilariously fucking easy. Take this first level for example. I'm one-shotting everyone I come across and it sometimes feels like they're not even fighting back.
Hey, you're that new guy headed.
The first thing you'll notice is that, yes, this is a Doom game, except it isn't. Of course, you have a roster of high-caliber ordnance of all shapes and sizes and you can blow things away relatively quickly, but you are not the Doom guy. You're some random fucker cradling a shotgun in the corner, cowering in fear in comparison. Said shotgun being about as accurate as post-coital piss. It fucking feels like these bullets are actually trying to miss these demons. I'm sure if you were to shove this thing up someone's arse, its accuracy is so shit that you'd still end up missing the target. The thing is, I can totally understand why Doom 3 does this. It's incredibly obvious that it had a certain weapons rotation in mind, and for the most part, when it works really well. When you actually land a one-shot with the shotgun and you watch those fuckers just dissolve into a spooky little skeleton, it's incredibly satisfying. And as any good FPS game takes advantage of its weapons pool, Doom 3 is no different. With each weapon having their own strengths and weaknesses and having various advantages given the situation and the enemies encountered. It does have that classic Quake problem of your guns getting instantly outclassed by the next gun you find, because I've no fucking clue why you'd want to use the SMG once you find the fucking chain gun. And the enemy variety is somewhat lacking as well, given the game impulsively throws imps at you throughout the course of the entire game, interspersed by enemies that kamikaze attack you and throw your fucking view all over the place as if I needed any more of an excuse to hate Lost Souls. It's this stagnation in enemy variety, the constant random teleportation, and the fact that most of your guns' rolls either merge together or are otherwise outclassed by the main workhorse weapons that this game's pacing and progression feels laughably impotent. Every hallway looks and feels the same as the next. Enemies dissolve into fiery mulches of nothing whenever they're killed, which, okay, yeah, it looks pretty fucking cool, but it's not backtracking through the sea of bodies laid in wake of your relentless slaughter cool. And ultimately, I think this summarizes why Doom 3 sucks so good, because in spite of its incredibly obvious flaws, in a vacuum, they wouldn't be a problem. But given all of these many different factors all pulling in different directions of one another, much of the game's excellent core design and atmospheric tension is lost in translation. And yet the game still remains fun to play, and arguably remains one of the more memorable experiences out of the family of shooters coming out at the time. But given how exhausting it can be to play due to the length, the repetition of environments, the constant spamming of the same teleporting demons over and over and over again, and of course the infamously handicapped weapon selection, this game is held back by the weight of its own belatedness from joining the ranks of a certified 2004 Hood classic. Rather unfairly as well, as there's nothing so egregious as to stop me from going back and playing it a second time. It's a decent enough game that got dealt a bad hand that worsened with the power of hindsight. Thank you all so much for watching, and special shouts out to the greatest patrons in the world. Every single one of you are awesome, and combined with every single viewer watching this video, you're all the reason I continue to get out of bed in the morning. If you want more Doom 3 content, I will be live streaming the game and the Resurrection of Evil expansion pack over the coming weekends at 7 PM British Standard Time, right here on this very channel. So don't be too shy to pop in and say hello. But yeah, I guess that's all I have to say for now. See ya.